sometimes you got to just gonna sleep outside. That's totally okay, you know. Like you got to try that out. And I go,
even though you have a hotel, you got to sleep out here on the sidewalk.
I know, it was the weirdest damn thing. I was like, why does he want me to like stay outside? Welcome to Ichimon Japan. I'm Tony.
And I'm Ryan.
All right. So, well, let's just get into it. So, Ichimon means one question, and every episode we ask a question about Japan. Today's question is, what was it like walking the Tokaido? So today's going to be an interview episode. Ryan's going to interview me because, okay, let me summarize. So as you probably know, if you've been watching my other videos and content and all that. So I recently,
you assume a lot from our fan base.
Well, some probably only listen to this. They're big Ryan fans, and
yes.
they can't stand.
Like, I don't care about Tony.
Yeah. I only watch this for Ryan.
If you're one of those fans, which I know is many, you can just stop watching because it's going to be a Tony-centric one.
Well, Ryan's going to ask a lot of questions, so at least you'll get to hear him ask questions. So, anyway, recently in September of 2023, I started walking from Kyoto to Tokyo. That's around 500 kilometers, around 300 miles. I headed to Tokyo along a route based on the Tokaido Road, which is literally the East Sea route. Basically, it's this old route that connects Kyoto to Tokyo. It was very important in the Edo period, so we're talking a few hundred years ago. Historically very important, and now, you know, there's like the bullet train, the trains, and the roads, all that are kind of like based along that old Tokaido Road. And I walked from Kyoto to Tokyo, and Ryan lives in Kyoto, so I saw him the second night I was there. We had dinner, and then I didn't see him ever again. So
and I invited him to my house. I invited him to movies. He just completely blew me off.
Yeah. Like a few days, I don't know, it must have been like a week after I departed, and after the last time that I saw Ryan, he emailed me and it's like, "Are you okay? Like, you arrived yet?" And I'm like, "Oh, I sorry, I haven't really been able to check my email, but no, I'm only in like wherever I was, maybe like Nagoya or something." So I haven't really told Ryan much about how this whole thing went. So I figured I'll make this into an episode, and Ryan probably would have some of the same questions that maybe some of the listeners might have. So let's just go with that. I don't know, Ryan, where do you want to start?
I assume you did not survive the trip.
I actually recorded this before, and I predicted everything you would ask me.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's the only question I had. Thanks for listening, guys.
I predicted that pause, and yeah, exactly. So
well, I guess something I do know that they might want to know is, how many days did it take you to do this?
Okay, so I arrived September 20th, and I slept over in Shizuoka, and then I took the bullet train over to Kyoto. That's like 13-14 minutes, I think. It's
Did
very
you take
quick.
The bullet train that way?
Yeah. And it's only
Isn't that expensive? Because like the normal train's like 400 yen and only takes 20 minutes.
From Osaka to Kyoto, it takes a little bit longer. I think
I've ridden it many times. It's like 20 minutes on the normal express.
No, but from Keihan to like basically the Kyoto station area, it takes about that much. So it would take like maybe 40 minutes or 30 minutes to Osaka, right?
No, it's faster. There's like a super express you can take.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, I mean, I stopped in Shizuoka because the hotel was cheap anyway. So, and the Shinkansen, the bullet train was only like 1,300 yen. So
okay, that's not so bad.
Yeah, exactly. It was not that expensive, so that's why I decided to do it that way. And I stopped right in instead of going. I arrived kind of late the first night, so instead of making it all the way to Kyoto, I figured like whatever, I'll just stop in Shizuoka and take the bullet train. So September 21st, I move over to the Kyoto station area, get to my hotel, and then I started walking from the bridge at the area called Sanjo, because that's considered the end of the Tokaido Road, the old Tokaido Road. And I arrived on day 29. So I arrived on October 19th. There were 4 days that I took off, like, to rest, sure, but also like to do stuff like exchange money, and I had to like, buy some stuff and do some things here and there, which because I was walking the entire day, I couldn't do during the day. So, those 4 days were like to take care of stuff and to rest and to recover from, like, for example, I got a blister like along the way. I needed a little time to recover from that. So stuff like that. Basically, it was 25 days of walking. Now, disclosure here, I did skip a couple parts that were like mountain. I cheated. I know I did. But basically, like, it was like these kind of dangerous areas because I'm legally blind, and like walking along like these mountain kind of like hiking roads would be dangerous to do by myself. I couldn't find anybody to do it with. And so there were basically 3 areas that I had to skip either all or part of. One was the Shizuoka Toge, which is a Shizuoka mountain pass. From my understanding is that either you go through a road that's only for cars and there's a tunnel and you can't pass through that if you're a pedestrian, or you have to hike this mountain pass area. So I ended up taking a taxi. Like I walked to this rest stop, like Michi no Eki, like they're like those highway rest stops, and I just went there and I wasn't sure what I would do. So I ended up going there. I was thinking either I'm going to have to like hitchhike and try to find somebody headed that way, or I'm going to have to figure out like something else, maybe call a taxi. And I was in that Michi no Eki like maybe 20, 30 minutes trying to find somebody that maybe seemed like they might be willing to give me a ride. I didn't feel comfortable asking random strangers to do that. So in the end, I had to go to the clerk at the gift shop and explain the situation. And they gave me the phone number to the local taxi company in Shiga Prefecture. And then I called them, and they came over, and then I took the taxi to the area to bypass that tunnel and to get to that area that I needed to get to. And that ended up costing like 5,500 yen. So yeah, a little pricey, but whatever, I had to do it.
Real quick, do you know historically, since this was like from like Edo era past,
yeah.
Did the old days people hike the mountain, or did it used to be like a footpath tunnel?
No, so they had to hike the mountain because the tunnel was only constructed like after the Edo period, maybe Meiji or maybe even Showa. I don't remember exactly when it was, because it's a more model tunnel. They basically had to blow a hole through the mountain and make it accessible for cars. And there's probably I'm sure there's other roads like for the bullet train. I don't know, like the bullet train doesn't go exactly to Tokaido, but it kind of veers in and close and far from the Tokaido. So there's points where it's very close, there's points where it's a little bit farther. So that was all much more modern times when they had the technology to just like blow open holes, and they had dynamite and construction and whatever to make holes in the mountains and all that.
I guess we should say, for any viewers who've never been to Japan and have only seen it in like movies and anime, you might not get this image of it, but Japan is just full of mountains.
It's like mostly mountains.
It's just everywhere. It's like you leave a town, it's just mountains everywhere in forests.
It really is, yeah. And I was, like I understood this, like both because I've seen it in maps and kind of understand it from the history and this and that, but like I felt it, like literally walking up these areas, walking through tunnels, walking literally through mountains, like I felt it this time, and that Shizuoka mountain pass, like it's classically known as one of these nansho. Nan comes from difficult, right? The kanji for difficult, sho is a place. So there are multiple nansho, there are multiple difficult places along the Tokaido Road, and these were like very dangerous places, like mountains, and sometimes literally having to walk through a river, or sometimes hiring somebody to like carry you over the river. These were places where people could easily die, and I'm sure many times they did die during these crossings. So this was one of those places. And so my understanding, like I asked like people along these highways and stuff, like I asked like one guy that was in a car repair shop in like this road, and he's like, yeah, I don't think you should do that. He's like, I think that's only for cars, so go to this road stop and maybe ask somebody there, right? And that's what I did, and then I called the taxi and I bypassed that. And then there was the other one, the Satta Toge. This was in Shizuoka, so this is another mountain pass, and I'm not sure what the car area was, but it seemed like it might be another one of these areas where it wouldn't be safe to like walk on my own. So I took one station like on the train, just like 7 kilometers. I bypassed that area, but this Satatoge is known for having a good view of Mount Fuji, and one of these famous ukiyo-e woodblock prints was, you know, basically the shot from the Satatoge, the Sata mountain pass. So I was very sad I couldn't do that, but I was by myself, so I skipped that. And then the last area was Hakone, very famous, you know, mountain area, like about an hour and a half from Tokyo, known for having this lake and, you know, onsen and you know, all the very picturesque tourist kind of area. But Hakone was known as basically the most difficult area. You know, it was just up and down this mountain. I think it's like 30 kilometers from the beginning area to the end area. I walked all the way up to the end area. Then I took the train, started walking the Kanagawa area, and then my friend, who's been on the show before, Miyuki, agreed to come down with me. So we walked along the reconstructed old Tokaido Road, which is like cobblestones and trees and roots, and it's very difficult to, you know, walk for me, because I would just like walk into the forest and off a cliff maybe, because I can't see that well. So I walked with her and we went up to like this old checkpoint area. We went up to pretty much the top of the mountain, and then that's where we finished. We didn't do the whole thing because most of that area is just, you would just be walking down like the car road. So it was kind of like, you know, I've done that before. So we walked along the most like Tokaido old historic kind of areas, and it was wonderful. So those areas I had to skip. Aside from that, I walked it all, but I also got lost so much along the way that I'm pretty sure I ended up walking, like making up for the distances that I skipped between all the time that I was like getting lost.
At one point, he wandered into Korea.
Yeah, I was like, this doesn't sound like Japanese anymore. Yeah. So, but I didn't end up in Korea, but man, like I ended up in some places like just, you know, like rice fields, and I ended up more than once. I would walk into like a company, like a company's like lot, and then like an employee would come out. It's like, hey, do you need any help? It's like, oh, Google Maps just told me to go here. It's like, oh, this is a company. It's like, oh, sorry, I guess Google Maps told me to go the wrong way. Sorry. So then I have to like get off the property and keep going down the original road I was on.
Yeah, I can say to someone who lives here, Google Maps is questionable in Japan.
It really is. And there's so many little roads here and there. And
like, Google Maps loves using them. It'll always have you leave the main highway to go on these tiny little farming roads. Yes.
When like maybe it's like 1 kilometer shorter technically, but between all the time that I would spend getting lost and like going down the wrong way and maybe take a right, take a left and checking my phone and this and that, like I should have just stayed on the main road and walked like 2 more kilometers, and I still would have gotten to my destination faster.
Yeah, that is definitely a problem with cars too. I think it just does it like linear distances less maybe.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really, like if you're driving, it doesn't realize that you have to like greatly lower your speed if you're like navigating tiny 1-lane roads next to like rice fields.
Yeah,
because when I had to learn to ignore it in my old town in Ishikawa, because it would always have you get off the highway like 4 exits early and take literally like 30-40 minutes of these tiny little winding roads to get home. Or if I just stayed on the highway, I could get home in like 5 minutes.
That's what would happen to me almost every day. And I'm like, really? Like, I'm pretty sure if but it's telling me to go into this neighborhood. It's like, okay, fine. I'll go into the neighborhood. And then turn left, turn right, turn left, turn right, turn left. And then I would use the live view where the arrows come out like on the screen. And, like it would be telling me to walk into like a yard basically. I'm like, no, okay. I have to like walk around this, and like, yep. Okay. I had to walk around. Like, it was such a hassle, but you know, I made it, but my God, I walked so much more than I had to, I'm sure.
I've also had it take me to paths that don't exist, and like, just keep going straight, and you're just like looking at a field, like, no. Yeah. No, there's this one. I've told the story on another video, but it's just funny. Like, it was telling me to go down this road that would take me in between like rice fields, and like it was telling me to go to the end and then take a left, but the road was like roped off. Like, so I was thinking, this must be private property. This is like, seems like I can't cross into that, and there was nobody to ask. And then I walked back like towards the rice field, and then there was like somebody that was probably on a tractor, but I couldn't see if it was a tractor or what, but I could hear the machine. And so eventually, after like walking back to the main road and trying to figure it out that way, it seemed like, no, maybe that's not the way. And then I came back, walked probably a couple kilometers, came back to the rice field. The guy was probably still there. I could still hear something. So I was like, sumimasen, excuse me. And it's this old guy, and he's like telling me, like yelling at me, like, go that way. And like, okay. And then he came up to the road and like took me over there. And what happened was like, I had to like take a slight right and then take a slight left down this little road that went down this way and down the mountain and, you know, into this road that was only for cars. And it was this whole thing. And Google Maps kept telling me to go left, but actually it was like a right and then a left. And it was just so annoying. I wasted so much time that day.
Yeah, in case anyone ever comes here planning to do like a driving trip, if Google ever like tells you to go someplace that looks odd, just ignore it and keep going and wait for it to reroute.
Yeah, just probably stick to the main road like as much as possible. Like that really is the safest way, because otherwise you really it's so easy to get lost. Like once you're in these little neighborhoods with the rice fields and like these little winding roads, it's annoying. But anyway, yeah, that happened to me so much. So just
not
be careful.
Not related to your trip, but even last week, I remember we were driving somewhere new and we're like going on the street and it had us turn right, left, and then right again to make like a little like C shape to just put us back on the road we were on. We're like, why did it do that?
It was probably like 0.2 kilometers shorter than
but we had to like wait for traffic lights and stuff to do this whole stupid little course.
It's so annoying. I know. That's like, no, that's not the best way. But anyway, yeah, that happened to me all like pretty much every single day. It was so annoying. I don't know. Anything else? Where do you want to go from here?
Let's say, what did you eat during your trip?
Okay, so eating was a total adventure as well, because, well, I can't see the signs of the restaurants, right? So, like, for example, there was a few times where one time I smelled a ramen place. It ended up being a Koko Ichiban, which is, you know, famous curry chain, and I had a wonderful meal, you know, curry and fried stuff, and no regrets. It was a great meal. Happy to find that place, but I found it because of the smell. And okay, I guess I'll go for curry. Another time it was a ramen place. Another time with the ramen place, before I smelled it, I heard the clerk asking the person that was sitting outside waiting to get in what firmness they preferred, katasa, right? And then I figured, oh, that's probably the noodles, because you can at many places, at many of these ramen places, they ask you like if you want like the firm noodles, the soft noodles, whatever. And then once I got closer and smelled it, I go, oh, it's a tonkotsu, like a pork bone broth place. And then I had lunch there. You know, other times I would, you know, look it up on the phone, and once or twice I found some places like that. It was good. Otherwise, I would just go to the station and just kind of wander around and find like the food court area, and then just start asking like, what do you serve, basically? Other times, thankfully, I have gotten to know a lot of people in Japan through my like Japanese language content and all that. And I would go out to eat with them. So that was great. That was easy. They would just go out, like, you know, I had miso katsu with somebody in Nagoya. You know, went out to a couple of like izakaya kind of places. I went to a kushikatsu place. So those are these fried skewers. This was by myself at a place in, I think it was Hamamatsu, in Shizuoka, and it was an omakase place. So basically, they just keep giving you skewers 3 at a time until you say like stop, right? And it ended up being like 4,700 yen, which sounds pricey, but remember, I'm going with dollars. And for me, that was more like paying $30. And a comparable meal like that in Hawaii, where I live, would probably have been $100. So it was probably like a third or less of the cost, and the quality was very good, and no complaints. I got some pineapple at the end, I think, too. It was a wonderful meal. I was so happy to find that place. So I was eating pretty decent most days, and no complaints about the food. Like even the cheap stuff is quite good in Japan, and again, very, very affordable, especially if you're going with dollars.
Just showing off with your dollar money.
Yeah, I know. Ryan is not earning dollars at the moment, so I'm sorry. But yeah, the exchange rate got to like, it's even now at the point of this recording, at least, it's around 150 yen to $1. So things feel a lot cheaper than they used to, you know, for somebody who used to go to Japan, you know, who's been going to Japan for a long time now, and back when the exchange rate was like 110 yen to $1, you know, back in those days, like when I was earning yen, I was very happy to be earning yen, but you know, now I'm going with dollars, so that ended up working out very nicely for me.
Yeah, I had a little bit of everything, basically. Sushi, I had some great sushi too. Went to a little like tiny sushi place, and the guy was like, oh, here's an extra roll with some, really nice toro, really nice tuna, here's extra for you because you need to, for your stamina for walking. So, of course, was talking all about the Tokaido thing and all that. So very nice. He gave me some extra food, and just overall the service and everything was very nice. Even at McDonald's, like I would go like, oh, they would ask me, I went for breakfast once and they asked me, do you know where the dining area is? I'm like, oh, sorry, no, I don't. It's like, oh, we'll take you. And so the clerk came out and she walked me up to the second floor and sat me down. It's like, oh, just leave the tray there. Don't worry about it. It's like, oh, wow, thank you. So just very, very nice all around it, and good food all around. Oh, but my default meal for most of the trip was 2 rice balls and a sandwich from the convenience store.
Ooh, which rice balls and which sandwich?
Well, I cycled through a lot of rice balls and all the sandwiches, I think, because most of the trip was that, because most of the time I was walking through areas that did not have a lot of places to eat, right? I was going through very rural areas. And so and also I didn't want to start searching for a restaurant because that would take 30 minutes maybe, or 40 minutes. I don't know. It could take a long time. So so I would go in the morning, buy my lunch. Sometimes it would be a pasta or something like a, bento kind of thing. But most of the days it was 2 rice balls and a sandwich, put it in my backpack. And then I would stop on the side of the road or something, and just eat right next to the highway or something. But my go-tos were tuna mayo. So tuna mayonnaise, that's kind of the default one that I would eat a lot of days. I also had the
tuna mayo.
Tsunamayo, exactly. Yeah. I would also have the Wahoo Tsunamayo, which is the Japanese kind of flavor tsunamayo, which I guess it has soy sauce or, some kind of maybe dashi or something, some kind of Japanese seasoning on it along with the mayonnaise. It's quite good. But by the way, the 7-Eleven rice balls were the ones that I enjoyed the most. I had, the Lawson, 7-Eleven were the 2 main ones. I don't know if I ended up having others because they're the 2 most common ones that I ran into. Also the shake, the salmon was, another go-to. And then after a while I started getting tired of those. I started having the fried rice one. And then the tori gomoku, which is almost like a chicken fried rice. No, not fried rice, but it's all mixed up with some vegetables and stuff. What else? I'm sure I had a few others. And then as for the sandwich, I would often have the mixed one, which was the egg salad, and maybe it had the tonkatsu one, egg salad, or the lettuce cheese one. I think after a while, I basically cycled through most of them because I was having them every day, and I like them. They're good quality and all, but when you're having them every day, you start to get tired. So yeah, that was my go-to lunch.
Okay, next question. Where did you sleep?
I just slept in hotels. Although it was, here's a story I haven't told. I was in the Minakuchi area, which is in Shiga Prefecture. It's a pretty rural area. I think that's in Koga City, which is known for ninja history and stuff, but it's a very out of the way rural area. And I got to the train station that I had made my goal for the day, and there was this old guy that he just came up to me, started talking to me, very talkative, very just oh, hey, what are you doing here? Blah, 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 blah. Just, older guy. And I told him oh, I'm walking, this and that. And it's oh, you're not going to stay here? And I'm no, I have to get back to my hotel in Kusatsu, or where was it? I think it was Kusatsu, or maybe it was, doesn't matter. It was somewhere else. Right. And in a more populated area, more convenient area. And he's oh, you could just sleep out there. You got to sometimes you got to sleep outside. You got to stay outside. For example, you see that right there, and I couldn't see it, but I think he was pointing to one of these covered bike rack kind of areas, and he's it's okay to sleep under one of those because that covers you from the rain and all that, but you can't sleep in front of people's houses because that's private property. But you sometimes you gotta just gonna sleep outside. That's totally okay. You gotta try that out. And oh,
even though you have a hotel, you gotta sleep out here on the sidewalk.
No, it was the weirdest damn thing. I was why does he want me to stay outside? And then he was but I guess if you have money, it's okay. days. Like, well, like it's okay. Like I already booked the hotel, but maybe you never know. One of these days I may have to sleep outside. Like, so I was just kind of humoring him, but he really wanted to be like sleep outside. He was a very funny guy. And then like I asked him, so is the train station around here? He's like, oh yeah, it's right here. Like I was right in front of it, and he like walked me over, and then like there were two old ladies in the train station, and then he's like, take a look at this guy, he's a handsome guy, check out his nose, it's such a tall nose. That's a compliment. Like, oh my god, he's giving everybody a free show. Like he was just so freaking talkative and just so excited. I don't know, he was, I guess, happy to see something different in his little rural town, I guess. But no, I did not sleep outside.
Did you sleep on the floor outside there?
No, I did. I did not sleep in random bike like parking areas. So thankfully I was able to get funding, sponsorship from a few different sources, but and that was enough to cover my cost basically for the entire trip. So some of the funding actually came from patrons, so thank you guys. Thank you very much for that, for those extra donations aside from the monthly donations. But I stayed in hotels, and basically what I did was I would book a hotel usually for multiple nights. So it would normally, aside from the very beginning, it was usually like 3 to 5 or 6 nights. And so I would walk, and then at the end of the day, I would get to the train, take it to wherever I was staying, sleep there. The next morning, I would get back on the train and go back to where I left off, get back on the train. At the end of the day, go back to my hotel, walk. I walked 20 kilometers roughly most days. Some days a bit less, some days a bit more, but that was generally it. And then once I would estimate, okay, so by this day I would usually be closer to this other place, maybe like to Nagoya, so I should move hotels. And then I would take all my stuff, move it, drop it off there, and then the next day I would start again, and then I'd be there 3, 4, 5 nights, and then do it again, and move hotels. I probably moved hotels like 6, 7 times the whole trip.
Well, think of how much easier it would have been if you just left him bike parking every day. You didn't have to drop your stuff off.
Yeah, I wouldn't have to take the train, like, because there's bike racks all over the place. Yeah, I'd just use my backpack as a pillow and just rough it for 30 days. I'm sure I would have survived, been totally healthy by the end of that trip. So yeah, it was. I think that the thing is that a lot of this Tokaido area is very rural areas. There's train stations, so at least there's it's not like middle of nowhere, literally middle of nowhere, like with nothing, like in the middle of a forest, but there's no hotels in most of these little areas and rural areas. So the most convenient way to do it, at least from what I've figured out, was to choose the hotels with the best train routes, best connections to the train stations, the central areas where you can travel, maybe 30 minutes, 40 minutes to wherever you left off, walk it, and then, do it, like in that way, little by little. And now, if you are super fit and you walk faster than I can because you're not getting lost due to not being able to see street signs and relying on Google Maps too much, you can walk more than I did. Like I was doing 20 kilometers about most days. You could probably do 30 kilometers or even more if you are, at that. If it's possible for you. There are people that can do that. So you can get to Tokyo faster than I did, and spend less money on hotels and all that. But
this sounds like part 2. You jog the whole way.
Oh, geez, I don't really want to do that.
Okay, but speaking of like the 20 kilometers, like how much was that in time for you? You think, like how many hours of walking?
Sure. So most days, I would wake up probably around 6 a.m. And then, hotel, get ready, the shower and breakfast, maybe buy something, buy the 2 rice balls and the sandwich or whatever. And especially if I had to get on the train, that would be extra time. So by the time that I would get started, it would be in the 8 o'clock hour. Sometimes it would be in the 9 o'clock hour. And then I would usually walk until best case scenario, if it was a shorter day, the 2 o'clock hour, but most days it was like 3 or 4 o'clock hour. And some days it was like 5 o'clock hour where I was getting to the train station right as it was dark. Like 5:30, by 5:30 it was dark. And there was once or twice where I got to the train station at like 5:30 p.m. It was dark. I barely made it. And I don't want to be walking around in the dark because it gets more difficult for me, and more dangerous. So, I was walking 5 to 7 hours most days. I would say like 4 to 12, 6, 7, sometimes 8 hours maybe. And now there were breaks in between, and stopping for the bathroom, stopping to eat, and then plus all the time that I was getting lost. So like I said, it's possible to do this much faster. It's just that for me, it took me much longer to do the same distance because getting lost and all that.
Speaking of getting lost, like how often was that? Was it like a daily thing or just a sometimes thing?
It was pretty much daily. The only difference was the severity. There were days when I might get lost for like 40 minutes or close to an hour. There were days where it was super easy, and I would only like have one moment where I was like, 10 minutes, like, oh crap, no, this was the wrong way. Got to get back to this way. And then, there were a few days where it was very smooth. But for the most part, it would be, like 15 minutes here, 10 minutes there. I would have to ask for directions. This was so funny. Like this happened so many times. I would sometimes split it up into intermediary goals and then the final goal. And so I would be trying to get to, whatever train station before I would re-input the directions and put in my final goal. So whatever, I would have to be getting to whatever the destination was, and then I would get lost, and I might have to ask somebody, like just some random person on the street, like, oh, excuse me, I'm trying to get to this station. And then they would look at me and they go like, that's really far. And like, oh yeah, that's like 5 kilometers away from here. And it's like, you sure you don't want to take the bus or the train? It's like, no, I'm sure. It's like, you sure? It's like, yeah, look, I actually walked from Kyoto to here. Like, it's like, oh really? It's like 5 kilometers compared to, whatever I'd walked, like 200 kilometers or whatever. Like, oh, okay, I guess then walk this way, do this way. It happened so many times. Like people were like, I'll give you a ride. Like, are you sure? Like, here's my car's right here. Like I can take you to the train station. Like, no, I'm walking on purpose. So yeah, that happened so many times. Like another time I was walking down an area that most people would not normally walk through. And of course I had my cane with me. So I really stick out, and some person stopped their car and like, do you need any help? I can give you a ride. Like, no, it's okay. I'm good. I'm doing this on purpose. So people were very nice, but sometimes I had to go like, no, don't worry. I'm okay. I can handle this.
So speaking of good experiences, did you have any bad experiences?
Oh.
Like maybe did police ever stop you?
Oh, okay, yeah. So, did I tell you the whole story about that, or only did I hint at it?
I don't know if there's more than what I heard, but I know I have. Well, you might as well say everything now since we have viewers listening.
Oh shoot, yeah, that happened the first day, so I did tell that to you because I met you the first evening. Yeah, well, anyway, just in case anybody hasn't heard it. So as I mentioned before, there are tunnels along the way, right? Because I was walking, in these areas that you go under mountains and stuff like that, and so obviously there's tunnels that are for cars, and some tunnels do have sidewalks. Like in Shizuoka, I walked through this crazy tunnel that was like probably, I think it took me over 10 minutes to walk through this tunnel. It was so freaking long. It was a crazy experience, but it had a sidewalk. Otherwise, I don't think I would have been able to do it. But it had a nice raised sidewalk. It was a fairly modern tunnel. I walked through that whole thing. It was crazy. It was a very unique experience. But in Kyoto, on my first day, I was walking from, again, like I said, the Sanjo Bridge to, my goal was Kusatsu, which is in Shiga Prefecture. I didn't make it that day, but I ended up making up for the little. I had to finish early, but I made up for it the next day. Anyway, so I walked that distance, but a few kilometers away from the main Kyoto city area, there was this tunnel, and I was just going by Google Maps. I put in walk Kusatsu
take me, go. And it's like, okay,
Walk
go.
Kusatsu, take me, go.
Take me,
Exactly
go.
those words.
That's what I just typed that in and it worked. And and then it took me down, I guess it was route number 1, the Kokudo Ichigosen, which is this, long route that goes through probably I think most of Japan, if not all of the main part of Japan at least. So I was just walking along this kind of like highway area, and then I get to this tunnel. I go, oh, okay, it's telling me to go through the tunnel. So I walked through the tunnel, and it was scary, right? Because there was no sidewalk in the tunnel. So I was like, oh crap, I got to walk through this. Okay, fine. I guess I'm walking through the tunnel. And I walked through the tunnel, and then I filmed this, right? And like, oh my God, I made it to the tunnel. This is so freaking scary. And then I'm walking a few minutes, and then these 2 police officers come up, and they stop me. They go like, oh crap, like, what is this? And they're like, you walked through the tunnel. And I go like, oh, yes, I walked through the tunnel. Like, I'm sorry, was I not supposed to walk through the tunnel? And they go like, yeah, that's not for pedestrians. Like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, what's your name? Like, do you have something with your name? Like, yeah, I have my passport here. You can have my passport. And they like radio in my name. And, then they ask me like, oh, what's that? Like, can you not see very well? They're like pointing at my cane. Like, yeah, I can't see very well. It's like, oh, okay. So they like communicate through the radio, and they're like, at the end they were nice, and it's like, just be careful. No, they asked me like, where are you going? And I go like, Tokyo. Are you walking? Like, yeah. Oh. They're like, okay. And then they're like, okay, be careful. Like, okay, I'll be careful. So thankfully I didn't get arrested, but it seemed like they were kind of puzzled. So the rest of the trip, I was like so paranoid about tunnels, because one, they're kind of scary, especially if they don't have a sidewalk. But thankfully, I think all the other tunnels, I walked through like maybe 6 more tunnels of the whole trip. They were all okay to walk through, but there was this one tunnel that had a sidewalk. I didn't realize it had a tunnel, and I ended up walking along the road, and it was so damn scary because the cars were like literally like they were turning around me. They were like veering to go around me. But I made it through okay. But then when I uploaded the video to my Twitter, the people were like, hey, Tony, there was a sidewalk next to you. And I'm like, what the hell? Why did I do this? There was a freaking sidewalk next to me. Like, I didn't realize it. I thought it was just the wall. But yeah, aside from that, the other tunnels I walked through were not as scary. There was one that had no sidewalk, but I confirmed with a runner that came out of the tunnel. It's like, hey, excuse me. It's like, why? Like, is it okay to walk through this tunnel? It's like, yeah, just stick to the left and just be careful. It's like, okay, I'll be careful. So yeah, that was my run-in with the police. Thankfully, I did not run into any other police along the way, but that was the very first time that I was ever stopped by police in Japan. And you often hear stories about foreigners getting stopped by police for no reason, like they get their foreigner card checked. That never happened to me, like when I was living there. That was the very first time. Just, I guess they had a camera in the tunnel. I think that's pretty common. And so they saw me do that, and they're like, okay, what's this weirdo doing?
Did you have any other, I don't know, like dangerous or exciting moments besides the tunnel travels?
Dangerous
or bears?
I did not see any bears. So ghosts, not that I'm aware of, unless some of the people that helped me out along the way ended up being ghosts. Let's
You're gonna upload your next video. They're like, Tony, you're surrounded by ghosts this entire time. What are you doing?
My God. Dangerous or exciting? Like, dangerous or exciting? I mean, the most unique like area that I walked through, this does kind of go back to these tunnel things, but I was Shizuoka to Yaizu. There's this area from Shizuoka to Yaizu that I was traveling, and like I was pretty like, how can I put it? I was pretty laid back about this whole thing. I didn't research every single portion of this trip. I just kind of like, okay, today I'm walking from here to here, and a lot of days like I just would do it, and whatever happened. And from the Shizuoka to Yaizu area,
that was like super interesting. It was this like coastal highway kind of area, and there were again 4 tunnels, like the super long one that I mentioned. And there was this one that it was kind of raining that day. I think there was like a typhoon kind of like, you know, passing nearby, but it wasn't like raining super hard or anything, but it was still raining. I had my poncho on, and like I was walking along like this like the ocean was literally like cliffs or like literally on my left. I was walking along this highway with this little narrow area, and then I get to this tunnel, which was like an open tunnel at first. It had these like big, like almost like window kind of things, and then I walked in, and then the road disappears, like the walking area disappears, and I go, okay, I'm turning back. I turn back, and then I'm like stuck there, and I'm like, I don't know what the hell to do, because I'm like, okay, if I walk back to, there's no train station in between. If I walk back, I'm gonna have to walk back like basically 8 kilometers or so back to my original destination. So it'll be like, oh crap, it's like I wasted the day. But I can't walk in through the tunnel, right? Because there's no like sidewalk. What I do? I start to walk back after I think about like, there's no area to like hitchhike either, because there's not enough space for the cars to like stop to just get through the tunnel, like hitchhike, get through the tunnel. So I'm like thinking, I'm like, okay, I guess I just gotta walk back and hopefully run into like a cyclist or something. And I start to walk back, and then maybe after 10 minutes of walking, this runner on the opposite side, like I mentioned, the runner before, right? Like comes out from the direction of the tunnel, and I'm like, okay, this is my only chance. Like I need to stop this guy. So across the road, I'm like, yeah, excuse me. And then, you know, there's no crosswalk, but he can see. So he crosses the road because there's no cars. He sees it's safe. And so I ask him, and then finally he's like, yeah, it's okay. Like you can walk, just be careful. Like it's okay. So apparently that is a very popular course for cyclists and I guess runners as well, because it's very scenic, right? There's the ocean, and it's very beautiful. It's very nice. It's this long coastal highway. There's 4 tunnels, and then like there's like the mountains and stuff to the right. Like it's very cool section of road that I would have never thought to ever have done by myself, but it ended up being very cool, very memorable. That may have been like the most memorable in terms of like the scenery and the uniqueness of all that I walked. But yeah, I had to walk through that tunnel. It was kind of scary.
It really does sound like this trip is just Tony versus tunnels.
It kind of is, yeah. Like every day, it was like, oh crap, is there going to be more tunnels today? And then like a couple days, I would like post to my like to my Japanese followers, like, hey, are there any tunnels in this area? And then one day I was like, no tunnels. They're like, okay, good, boom, I'm going. There were no tunnels that day, but there was like once or twice where tunnels like got me by surprise.
Got you by surprise. You're just walking and suddenly you're in a tunnel.
Yeah. No, I go like, I see in the distance like, oh crap, that looks dark. I think that might be a tunnel. And then I get close like, oh crap, it's a tunnel. And then that day with the 4 tunnels, I was like, okay, I made it through the tunnel. Surely there's no more tunnels. Oh crap, there's another tunnel. And then I walk more like, oh no, I think it's another tunnel. That was the craziest freaking day, like just 4 tunnels like in a row. But it ended up being like the most memorable experience I think of in terms of just like adventure. Like it was such a crazy, you know, chunk of road that I'm glad I ended up doing it, but it was very unique.
Well, okay, since we're on the tunnel subject this whole time, what was like the longest single tunnel? Like how many minutes or?
Oh yeah. So that on that day with 4 tunnels, I don't know the name of the tunnel, but if you look it up, I'm sure it must be fairly easy to look up, because this was a huge tunnel. Like the 4th tunnel, when I was walking again from Shizuoka to Yaizu, the 4th tunnel, it must have been over 10 minutes of walking. Like it was long enough where I filmed this whole thing, but it was just like tunnel. Like there was nothing that interesting, but the whole video I'm going like, this is so long. And like halfway through the tunnel, there's actually like a little rest area where you can park, I guess, if your car something happens or like for maintenance or something. So when I got to that area, it's like, oh wow, like this must be like really long, because there's enough space here to like make a little space for like maintenance and cars to park. So it was really, really long. Thankfully it was well lit, and there was a sidewalk, so it wasn't as scary as some of the shorter ones that I went through when I either thought there was no sidewalk or there was actually no sidewalk.
Okay.
But yeah, I've never walked through a tunnel that long ever. So
you name your like like the videos, like the Tony's tunnel tours or something.
Tony's tunnels through Japan. Yeah.
Tony tunnels through Japan.
So yeah, I do have videos that I plan to like edit together and stuff. Like it'll be a very simple edit. I'm not some filmmaker, so but you know, if people do want to see some of these things that I'm describing, you know, there are videos that I will eventually release. Any other things you're curious about, Ryan?
I guess. I mean, we've been going a while, so how about
Yeah,
like, what is your next plan when you come to Japan? Do you have any other crazy zany adventures like this in the future? Do you think?
I would absolutely love to do more stuff like this. I don't know. The problem is funding, right? Like I can't spend like $6,000 to do something like 30 days long like this again, unless I get funding. You know, if JapanKyo and all the stuff we do like actually ends up making profits one day or something, like I would be happy to reinvest and do stuff like that. But like, for example, one thing that I would love to do that I haven't done yet is Mount Fuji, right? Climb Mount Fuji. I would love to document this and, you know, give it a shot, do it. And I would have to go with somebody because that would be dangerous on my own. But, you know, things like that, or there's a few places. There's one place in particular. There's this one festival that I've seen online that I have never seen any English language YouTubers cover at all. I don't even know if there's any English language coverage of it at all. And I would love to cover that, but I'm not going to talk about it because I don't want people to go there yet. but but like I would love to do that. This isn't like a super rural area of Japan, and it would be quite an adventure to do this. You know, there are things that I want to do. It's just that they can be quite expensive. So I am working on growing, you know, basically JapanKyo in general, the YouTube channel especially, because that's especially important for new people discovering the content, because it's much easier to grow things on YouTube than just purely the audio podcast. So that's why I've started to do more video stuff too. So we'll see. I don't know. I would love to do this, and I'm willing to invest some of my own money to do this as well, because these are things that I would love to do anyway. But you know, I can't spend all my money on this stuff either, because it's just I would run out of money. So you know, I need money to live. So you know that if you can afford to join the Patreon, that certainly helps. But
I don't know what you're talking about. You don't need money. You can just sleep in bike parking places.
Yeah, that's the hack. That's the hack that the old
That's just where you live now.
Yeah, sorry guys, I'm just gonna live under a bike rack because that's the only way I can afford to do these ridiculous things. So we'll see. Maybe I'll have to do that to resort to doing that in order to do more content like this. But overall, like it was, I'm. This was a very difficult thing to do in many different ways. Every morning. Most mornings it was like, oh God, I gotta do this. But hey, you know, I'm gonna do it. You know, like when you wake up knowing you're gonna have to spend like 7-8 hours walking in the heat, or you know, maybe you might have to face another tunnel. You know. You know, in the morning it's tough and you get fatigued, and you know, I did kind of get injured a little bit along the way, and this and that, and you know, it was not easy. But you know, I once I was out there walking, it was like, okay, I'm here, I'm doing it, you know, and I just gotta keep pushing, and I'm very glad that I did it. I'm very happy that I accomplished this, even with all the difficulties and all that. It's a very unique experience that I would not recommend for most people, by the way, and that's a whole other episode why you should do it or not do it. For most people, no, but I think there are very interesting areas to visit along the way, but maybe it's not worth it for you to invest, you know, $6,000 to do it the way that I did it. But
yeah, I didn't do it, but I've seen videos similar to like what you did to people biking, and I feel like they edit out the like 4 hours of just literally nothing but trees and stuff around them.
Oh yeah. Most days, to be perfectly honest, most days were mostly very boring, because it was just me walking along like these highways and stuff, and very just nothing to look at. Like there were days where it was hot as hell, and I would have to walk down like 7-8 kilometers straight, and I would just start to get sleepy, like because there was just nothing. Like it was just like zombieing out. And it's mentally taxing aside from physically taxing. So for most people, it's not enjoyable, but for me, it was a personal challenge, and I wanted to prove something. I wanted to do something interesting and different, and I do enjoy kind of challenging myself in that way. So for me, it was fine, and I'm glad I did it. Thankfully, I'm healthy. I did get injured along the way, but I'm okay. I will be okay, whatever. But you know, it's okay. So I'm glad I did it. But I would love to do more stuff
kind of in this adventure-ish kind of way, but I do need to grow the JapanKyo stuff more. So any support, if you want to.
So you heard it. If we get some number of followers, he'll go from Okinawa to Hokkaido, all walking, only tunnels.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'll do.
The all tunnel path.
I'm gonna pick as many tunnels as possible and see.
You just like walk down into the subway path and go there the whole way.
So no, I will not do that. But no, it is true. If I do get more funding and it becomes easier to like fund the trip to Japan, and from Hawaii, it's actually not that expensive. So yeah, and plus with the exchange rate, this is far more feasible than it would be, where I still be living in Florida or something like that. So yeah, if you want to support, JapanKyo.com/Patreon and ko-fi.com/JapanKyo if you want to do a one-time donation. So there's my commercial at the end of this. Yeah. So more stuff coming, more content coming inspired by this. There's so many stories that happened along the way that I can't compress into like 1 hour, all that. So there will be individual videos and this and that and things that inspire that we will talk about in this show moving forward. But I wanted to cover it on this show because maybe there are some true hardcore Ryan fans that really don't like my solo stuff. So
what do you mean maybe?
Yeah. So all Ryan
at the very least, my wife listens sometimes.
Yeah. It's like, no, I actually like Tony more. So for the Ryan fanatics, sorry, this was a me focused episode, but at least now I did something kind of crazy and that's the story. So there you go. Thank you for putting up with me, Ryan fans. All right. So subscribe to the show if you're watching on YouTube or whatever, hit the subscribe button. I am really trying to get to that 1,000 subscriber mark. That is a nice number that looks nice, but also I can at least put in the request for the monetization. I'll make like 2 pennies, whatever, off whatever I get, but still it's nice. It's nice. Oh, by the way, Ryan, I haven't told you this, but here's a little thing that for the listeners to know as well. Like the audio version of the episode that we did about Weathering with You, the anime movie, that got over 100,000 views.
What, really?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. It's crazy. I don't know. I haven't looked at the retention rate, so maybe people are just dipping out after the 5 minutes, but still, I think that might be the video on JapanKyo that has the most views. I think it's like 121,000 views. It's ridiculous. So I don't know. I don't know why that happened, but it's nice to have monetization because you never know. Sometimes something pops off and you get a little bit of money. So, trying to get to that 1,000 subscriber mark. So guys, hit the subscribe button. Even if you're only a podcast only listener, I would appreciate that. All right. So we've gone on for a while. Ryan, I don't know. You want to close out with anything?
Yeah. Blah, 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 blah.
Oh, very poignant. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yes, exactly. Isn't it? I don't know. Now I'm trying to look up the Weathering with You video on YouTube.
Yeah. I'll stall a little bit more. Drop a comment. And if you have any questions, you can just email. I think it's what is it? mail@japankyo.com, I believe, is the email. Although the email is in the show notes as well. We are always looking for questions, and we do our best to answer questions and look into these little mysteries. Did you find it, Ryan?
I'm currently on the channel looking, and everything is 100 views, 500 views.
Yeah, there's a few that got 10,000, whatever. There's some random
views.
Yeah. It's really weird. The JapanKyo YouTube is really weird. There's some that get crazy views, and there's some that get 20 or something or 5. I don't know what that is, but like I said, the Weathering with You one got over 100K.
So listener, if you're one of the people who's listened to many things, you're in a very small group. Wow, this one only has 7.
Yeah. Those I did a batch upload for some of them. Sorry, this is so people don't care, but yeah.
One has 5.
Yeah, I know. Those are the older ones, but then partway through it started to kind of blow up, and then it's calmed down, and then sometimes they pop off. It's really random. It's really weird. But whatever. I mean, I don't care. Views are views. I'm happy. It's a nice number, but I am trying to grow the YouTube side of that to get more consistent views. So we'll leave it at that. But Ryan is looking into the YouTube. But thank you for listening, and we'll be back next time with more Ichimon Japan. See you next time.
Yes, see you next time. Goodbye.